In this video, we're going to be talking about the HubSpot Sales Hub and more specifically giving you a demonstration on some of the functionality of the actual sales feature within the HubSpot CRM suite. So within this demo, we're going to spend the majority of our time touching on the sales tools. If you're unfamiliar with HubSpot already, you'll notice that HubSpot's navigation bar is split into different business functions, meaning that ease of use is always at the forefront, meaning that the majority of the features I'll be going through on today's demonstration, it sits under the actual sales part of the navigation. In terms of where we're going to start on this deals screen as shown. What the deal screen allows you to do is capitalize using the HubSpot database for more of a sales management point of view. With any kind of pipeline view, it allows you to have full customization and full overview of where all your deals are at any given point in time. With HubSpot, you do have the ability to filter this down by particular. So you could filter it down by particular SDRs in terms of what deals are relevant to them. You also have the ability to split by numerous. So you could actually split it by numerous people within the portal, or actually filter it down based on core filters such as create date, last activity date, close date, as well as defining more intricate and granular filters through the properties and data you collect on the actual deals themselves. You also have the ability to split your pipeline into different stages. So with HubSpot, subject to the plan you go on, you do have the ability to create different pipelines for different use cases. So you may have a sales pipeline. You may have a renewals pipeline that you can switch to as well, meaning that it's the same interface regardless of where you start your actual journey. You can click between the actual different pipelines, meaning that you can actually forecast based on pipeline in isolation, knowing that if the process is different, the forecasts will be different and isolated because of that. Meaning you don't have to set portal-wide forecasts or goals, knowing that the process may not lean true to certain parts of your sales team. By having ease of access in mind, you can quickly filter, as shown by here. But what you also have the ability to do is customize your pipelines via edit. What this allows you to do is use the inbuilt HubSpot forecasting to quickly understand and customize different stages. So if I wanted to create a different stage, I could rename this to inquiry if I wanted to, and I can customize the actual forecast of that stage if needs necessary as well. Meaning that if it's an inquiry, I only expect it to have 10% chance of closing. If that was to be actually shorter, I can add in my own options such as 5%, and then HubSpot will work out that whatever the deal value that sits in inquiry is, times by 5% will work out as what the forecasted amount of revenue from a deals in that actual stage. And you can customize all these actual stages to your heart's content. If you find that you may need more, you can add a deal stage at the bottom and customize this for all the different pipelines. You can customize this across the pipelines, meaning that if you customize the demo pipeline here and then switch to the renewals one, it won't have blanket changes, meaning you don't have to have account-wide deal stages. The actual pipelines can be as specific or as niche or is relevant to your organization. The other great thing about HubSpot is that you will allow to actually automate certain elements of your pipeline, meaning that if you know that you have a deal that's in the actual inquiry and then it goes into qualified to buy, you can set certain actions to happen, such as creating tasks. You can also send internal email notifications and basically build out very simple automation out of the box. What you can also do is build out more specific, intricate automation, such as rotating records, such as lead assignment, such as when they come into inquiry, we may want to rotate the deal owner through a team in our actual portal. And if they already have an owner, overwrite it as well. And we can save it, and we can quickly build out automation that is deal stage specific. HubSpot allows you to build out your pipeline, but also automate a lot of the efficiencies within it as well. And going back to that ease of access, any automation you apply on your pipelines doesn't necessarily carry across to every other pipeline as well. Meaning you can have different automation depending on the process in terms of what you actually want to build out as well. Meaning that you can build out a process that is a lot simpler and a lot smoother and a lot more slicker in terms of basically how deals move from left to right in your overall sales funnel, allowing you to have better grips on your overall close rate, as well as the velocity the deals are going through your pipeline as well. If we go back to the actual deal screen, you'll be able to see that at any point we can actually filter this down. Meaning that we don't have to filter down based on custom deal owners. We can actually search for custom deals just via the search bar. And by clicking into a deal, what we can actually see is the overall interface is very much the same. Meaning that it doesn't matter if you're on a contact record, a ticket record, or a deal record. If you was to incorporate other products of HubSpot, the overall barrier to entry is quite low. Meaning that if you understand how to use the sales interface, it's exactly the same on the marketing tools. It's exactly the same on the contacts. It's exactly the same on the customer service, meaning that your entire organization works in the same hymn book in terms of its crafted, not cobbled in how HubSpot's being put together. When you're on the deal record, it is split into one of 3 core areas. On the left-hand side, you have all your information that you can customize, meaning you can create custom properties that collect information that's relevant to your actual deal. On the middle, you've got your actual time for that deal. And on the right-hand side, you've got the links to that deal as well, meaning that if you wanted to have a quick glance at deal creation attribution, if this deal came on the back of a customer success ticket, if this deal was linked to certain individuals in your database, you can do that by basically going to the right-hand side, searching if you have someone in your database, and be able to actually link them to the deal from there. What you can also do is label the actual contact to actually describe the nature of relationship they have to that record as well. And what that will allow you to do is seamlessly flip between the records from your contacts database, so seeing all the information you collect on the individual versus just the information you've collected on the actual inquiry. Meaning you can isolate your communications, or very much so you could carry them across as well in terms of what that looks like. With HubSpot as well, on the left-hand side, you will see you have the ability to put in information as you progress, which is very similar to that overall kind of pipeline view in terms of how we can actually go on the pipeline and customize at what stage certain properties show. So we may say that at qualified to buy, we want to necessarily get a better grip on the close date. And we can quickly build out at every stage, they have to just check the close date to make sure it's accurate. And then at close 1, it becomes required as marked by an asterisk. So making sure that our close date reporting is always accurate. This allows you to streamline how you enter data into the sales pipeline. So not only customizing the pipeline so it's ease of access and automating it to bring efficiencies, but also standardizing the way that your teams and your scaling sales teams actually utilize it, meaning that everyone's working from the same playbook and collecting the same information that can then correspond to your reports that you go on to build. And with deal management, what you can actually do is create different activities. So activities sit still on the deals, which allows you to basically create notes, send emails, historically log calls, emails, or meetings, meaning that if you typically do your admin towards the end of a day and you may not have done your today's actions knowing that they've already happened, you can retrospectively backdate these as well. So I could say that I had a phone call with this person at 11:45. It was with the contact that's associated to the deal. It was connected. It was a test in terms of actual call type. And I can actually describe the nature of the calls. So it could be really promising, decision expected in Q2. You can also create tasks to follow up so that after I've logged this call in 2 business days time, I want to actually follow up with a task. And what this allows you to do is quickly build out the actual activity timeline in terms of what that looks like. Because you see here, I have backdated my actual activity for 11:45 this morning, and that has added that subsequently to the actual timeline as well. It can also split this into your upcoming activities on the timeline. So you can see I've got a task that's due on the 2nd of March just via a few clicks to follow up on the actual activity that I just logged there. You can also filter this down by notes, activity types such as emails, calls, tasks, meetings, meaning that as this becomes more and more data enriched, you don't lose that ease of access. It allows you to quickly filter this down. So if you have cross collaboration, for example, you can filter it by a user, or if there's different teams touching the deal, you can also filter that down as well, which brings us quite nicely onto one of the enterprise features of the HubSpot Sales Hub, which is deal splits, meaning that if you have 2 reps that are necessarily collaborating on a deal, you don't have to just set one static owner in just Samuel Banks in this instance. What you can actually do is add a deal split, which allows you to split the revenue for this deal between 2 different individuals within your actual portal. You can then split this evenly or by percentages, meaning that you can customize based on involvement what the crediting of this overall deal amount of £750 necessarily is. Why this is great is it shows anyone coming into the deal what the involvement is internally from your SDR point of view, or maybe your business development process. So you could have a business development rep and a sales rep that maybe are quoted and forecasted slightly differently. What this allows you to do is actually just have one singular record rather than creating numerous records just to make sure that people get allocated the right revenue or in the actual business quarter, meaning that you don't have to bloat your pipeline just to be able to allocate revenue by duplicating a deal and then splitting it in half. What this then allows you to do is by actually having a good wholeness in terms of setting up deal splits, filtering, you also have the ability to actually scroll down and use HubSpot Sales Hub for your actual CPQ process, meaning that you can actually add line items to the quote, meaning that if you wanted to actually productize your actual deal, you can actually associate line items or products that is making up the £750 in TCV. Out of the box, HubSpot allows you to track TCV, annual contract revenue, total contract revenue, annual recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue, as well as what the margin is based on the annual recurring revenue, and what the actual deal amount that was manually specified as well. You can actually add in new line items, which come from a library. So you can pre-select something that's already in there, or you can actually create a custom line item where they may be buying something that's not typically out of the box for your organization. And you can specify what the name, the SKU, the description, the image URL, what the unit price is, how often that product is billed typically, what the cost is to you as an organization, as well as what the term is over to calculate what your recurring revenue necessarily is. You can specify and add these to your actual line items and terms, but what you can also do is start to specify how much you want to sell that for, meaning that if you add it from a library, you can still override this in the actual quote in terms of what the actual deal is going to, which will then automatically calculate what your TCV, your ACV, your ARR, MRR, and your margin are that could be pulled onto dashboards for reporting purposes as well. You can then save this, and what you can actually do is update the deal amount based on the line items that sit within it. Once you've actually got this together, in terms of building that out, you can actually send quotes based on the line items doing, meaning that rather than having separate isolated systems for opportunity management versus actual contracting versus finance, you can actually consolidate a lot of that by using the HubSpot Sales Hub, meaning that you can either go into line items and create a quote, or you can add a quote that may have been created previously. So we can actually go into edit and press create quote. And then you have the ability to basically set this out in terms of setting pre-selected templates that you can customize by clicking here, or actually just sending out this, which will basically allow you to start selling from the offset, meaning you don't have to wait for any technical development. HubSpot has these out of the box that you can then quickly use, which is dynamic based on what you add them in. So you can select your quote, you can name what the quote is when the quote expires, any comments to the buyer, such as imminent from Q2 2022, subject to March, PO signed. You can add links into these actual purchase terms, and you can build out the quote automatically, meaning that the front end editor for an SDR is very straightforward in terms of basically having an aligned approach to quoting and contracting. You can then press next. You can select who's going to the contact, which is automatically picked up for who's associated to the actual deal, as well as selecting a company, meaning that you can search the database for any companies that already exist or associate a completely new one altogether. This will then slowly build out the quote in a very easy to access way. You can then customize the line items that are on it. You can add discounts, such as a one-time discount if you wanted. So you could put loyalty discount and name the type of discount that's on it, and you could actually put the actual discount that is, and you can work out what that is. So we may choose that if the total value is £1,000, we give them a 10%, which is £100 off, and that will bring that quote. You can also have the use of having no signature. It's just a flat facing document. You can include a space for a written signature that they can then print off, as well as a space for a counter signature, or you can look to use e-signatures as well. Depending on your plan you take out with HubSpot, you will have a limit on e-signatures, and you can actually add countersigners if you necessarily need it in terms of setting them. If you're in the US and you use an actual HubSpot payments, you can actually integrate this with Stripe, or you can actually use HubSpot payments as well, which at the moment in time is only available in the US, but we're looking to be expanded and rolled out further. So you can customize this based on what you necessarily need. You can press next. You can then preview what the quote looks like, as well as if you wanted to change the overall language of the quote, which is automatically picked up on the template. Any notes or description of the product will need to translate it natively, but overall it's built so that the actual recipient can access the quote in terms of not just from a end user point of view, the accessibility of it, but ultimately from putting it together as well. As you can see, I've managed to create a quote in a mere amount of minutes. I can then send a link to the actual end user so they can go on, countersign it, print it, or whatever they need to do. I can also write an email that will take me back to the actual CRM screen. And as you can see, it will attach the actual quote there as a link as well, which they can access. You will then notice that on the right-hand side, if I scroll down, I can see the line items, which is making up the overall revenue. I can see all the activities, and I can also see the quotes that have been publishing and when it's due to expire as well by using HubSpot quoting. This is great because it allows you to quickly understand where deals are at, not just from a stage point of view, but if there's a contract out, if there are certain line items, and you can also go in and you can recall and edit quotes. You can clone the quote, you can download the quote, or like I said, if you lose track of the link and they come back a bit later on, copy the quote and see what it looks like from their point of view. As you can see, this is how it's been built, and I can download and I can print it as well. In terms of that, that's how we utilize HubSpot deals for the overall pipeline and opportunity management, as well as CPQ in terms of contracts and closing. Now, what you may be asking is, That's great, but how can I include all of this into my forecast? And the actual simple answer with this is we already touched on it. So by going into the actual deal screen and customizing deal probabilities, you can set it from here. And out of the box, HubSpot will work on a weighted forecast in terms of weighted revenue. But you can also customize this by going into your settings and then forecast as well. Meaning that you can actually select what deal amount you want to forecast against, whether it's a weighted amount, whether it's a total amount you want to include in your forecast, and then legacy if you've had a HubSpot subscription prior. I would recommend either going on one of the two, as these are the widely supported options. What you then have the ability to do is actually, for certain pipelines, select if you want to automate that. Meaning that you can select what your forecast period is. You can then press automate and then start saying that if they're in a particular stage, apply this label in terms of if they're in your pipeline, if they are your best case, if it's a commit, or if it's closed won. And HubSpot will automatically detect that in terms of basically what stages should marry up to that, but you can customize which ones come in. So you may say you only want to include contracts sent in your commit because they're contracts that are actively out, meaning that you can actually filter down your forecast based on that as well. And by setting up this functionality in terms of understanding your deal stage probability, the amount that you're forecasting on, the automation of the actual category assignment per each deal allows you to fully utilize the power of the forecast tool in the actual sales tool, which looks something like this. So by pressing sales and forecast, you can see at a glance your actual forecast. And this can be split between whether it's a deal stage, by certain stages in the pipeline, by a sales pipeline. We can see how much this person has in the qualified to buy versus presentation scheduled versus contracts sent. And you can filter that in terms of basically however you need that to be. So we could look at this year. We could look at last year if we necessarily wanted to, and we can then filter that down by pipelines as well. And what this allows us to do is quickly see for your team's performance what people are bringing in versus what people are contributing as well. And you can quickly see where the weighting of your overall kind of forecast is, as well as allowing someone to manually estimate their forecast submission for that individual. And you can view the deals at a click of a button just by selecting view deals, and it will break down ultimately what deals are contributing to that forecast. You can then go a step further in terms of still using the actual pipeline filter and the close date. But what you can actually do is, instead of looking at the deal stage, is okay, let's look at various SDRs or BDs in terms of, for this one in particular, how much in their forecast have they agreed is in their pipeline versus their best commit versus their commit? And then what did they submit for that period in time? So I could submit that I am looking to close £100. Buyer went on holiday, deferred previous estimates. You can submit your forecast, and that will notify ultimately who you're managing the pipeline as well. Meaning that you can actually control a lot of your actual forecast in terms of what that looks like. You can then view the report in terms of clicking that, and then you can actually see these reports that you can then add to dashboards by a save report. So you can add these forecast reports to your dashboards in terms of actual specifics. I want to see the value of all the deals that are in there split by the different stages. So we can see, okay, for the deal owner of Samuel Banks, in his actual forecast on the actual weighted forecast, he has got £20, which have been automatically calculated, versus what his attainment is in terms of what his actual submission was. We can then filter this down in terms of the revenue goals, as well as the ability to add that as well. Lastly, in terms of what the forecast is, you do have the ability to edit the goals for your team. You can create deal goals based on lots of different aspects within HubSpot, such as tickets, resolutions, but more specifically revenue. So what you can actually do is set the goal for your forecast in different months, and you can see that what they actually achieved against that as well. And this allows you to create reports, which is basically their forecasted versus their actual versus their quote. And it allows you to ultimately automate a lot of this function as well. You can then set different goals by different pipelines, as well as different teams as well. And what you can then do is press create. You can select the type of goal it is, such as revenue. You can select what pipeline it's going to work on. You can select what the actual individual is. You can add them. And then you can start selecting based on what your forecast actual frequency is. And you may have a flat target. You may want to say that from February, his quota is £1,000. Instead of doing that 12 times, you can apply it for the remainder of the year. And the best part about that is it will automatically work out overall for the year what their goal is. Meaning that everything you create with the actual forecast tool, in terms of what you're sending out in quotes, what you're sending out in line items, in deal management, ties into your overall forecast. If this is your forecast and that's your management, how do we utilize productivity tools to make the most of that? HubSpot has this in the form of documents, meetings, payments, playbooks, and we've covered quotes already. Meaning you can actually create documents that are essentially stored from your marketing team that can be used in your actual sales pipeline. What this allows you to do is create documents at a glance, either by uploading existing ones from your actual computer or an existing file in HubSpot. You could upload it from there, or you can select an existing one as well. You can also filter it down by who owns what document, meaning that this can actually speed up your workflow, meaning that you don't have to go salvaging, your SDRs or your BDs don't need to go looking through file systems when they could actually be out there selling. You can create a link to this document that is unique to an individual. And what that will actually do is create a uniquely tracked link to that document, which you can send to them out of the CRM. But where that gets really powerful is that once you start sending out your link to documents, you can quickly see who's viewed the document, how many times they viewed it, as well as when they last viewed it. You can then click into the contact record, and that will actually be stored on that same record that we went through at the start in terms of building out that contact. So we can see that what pages they viewed for how long of the document, meaning that it's not just manual entries that are going in. By clicking onto a contact, you can actually see which pages they spent the most time on. So you can actually pick this up in conversation with them, meaning you can have really contextual conversations that are more likely to close based on the information you then collect through using documents. Lastly, if you have another variant, so it's the same file, but you've just updated a few slides on it, you can actually just re-upload it, meaning you don't lose all the data you've collected to date. You just add in a new variant, meaning you don't have to create separate documents for V1s, V2s, V3s, meaning your marketing team can collaborate across the board. In terms of other items, what you can also do is use meetings. Meetings is great for having a frictionless approach to scheduling meetings and getting calls in. What this allows you to do is basically create a scheduling page, which is a meeting. So you can select up an automated meeting that's integrated with your Google or Outlook calendar, which is either a one-on-one, i.e. someone books in time with you and only you. So it's a one-to-one meeting. Someone can then book in time with a group of people internally. So this could be a sales team of 3, where the end user may want to meet on Tuesday at 9 a.m. and that's the only time they can do. So it will look for the group of people's calendars for anyone that's free at Tuesday at 9 a.m. Or you can have a round robin, which is basically distributing when a meeting comes in, it goes to a general calendar, but then it assigns it out to who's got capacity as well. Meaning that, again, it's not just lead assignment you can do from within HubSpot, but you can actually round robin the approach in terms of basically who gets meetings. What that then looks like is you have the ability to edit this in terms of what the actual name is, where it's happening. You can add video conferencing links, meaning that you can add a Zoom link automatically, as well as because HubSpot's connected to an actual database, you can actually reference that in the actual email they get back from booking a meeting. You could put the actual first name from the database, as well as you're all set, as well as the ability to actually cancel or reschedule the meeting at their own convenience. You can select what the meeting type is, so you can automate basically if it's a discovery, if it's an exploration, so that when someone books in, it falls into your reports in terms of what kind of calls people are booking. You can save that and also choose when you want to schedule it, such as what it's called, what the duration options are, what the availability window is, as well as what it looks like in terms of when it shows, what the actual display image is, the notice time, the buffer time, the start time increments, as well as what the booking page and the date and time format is for the end user. With that said, it doesn't necessarily skip needed information. So one of the main questions we get around the meetings tool is, well, can people just book you in with no context? And the question is, well, yes, also no. You can customize what information they need to fill out when they go to this meetings link before they can even book something into your calendar, meaning that you're going in armed with the information that you need from the offset, just without the headache of trying to find a time or a place. You can then customize the actual confirmation in terms of where that's sent them to, or redirects them to find further cross-sells or products in terms of what that looks like. You can then send them a confirmation email or a pre-meeting reminder in terms of set intervals before the meeting. What that then looks like is by setting one of these meetings up is the end user has full access to your actual calendar and can actually look in terms of when they have capacity. And if you set no times as available, it will blank it out as well, which will then prompt them to send you a manual email. As you have more capacity, you can jump to your meeting at any time. And where it says scheduling, you can actually say that your additional settings, and then you can actually customize basically how open your calendar is. So I could save it like so, and I could add in more times if I needed, go back to my meetings link and refresh it. And you can see that I've opened up my calendar in terms of what can be booked, and it will then ask for actual data entry as well, meaning that you're booking meetings whilst you're asleep and the actual maybe other time zones are awake, allowing you to come in with a pipeline full of new prospects and ultimately a chance to sell. Lastly, the other option that you have is the ability to create playbooks. A playbook is essentially a document, which is, you guessed it, a playbook, which allows you to basically put structure behind some of your discovery calls. So meaning that if you're on a deal and you go to actually a test deal, you may choose to roll out a playbook. So you may choose to call out of HubSpot by making a phone call. And whilst you're on that call, you can connect your phone number, but you can scroll down to where it says playbooks, which is here. And we can roll out a playbook whilst I'm on the call, meaning that I can actually standardize the way that people approach sales calls, maximizing the amount that people close by with proven formulas. And what's great about a playbook is it allows you to offer structure, but also you can fill this out as you're on the call, meaning I can either type in a manual entry or select an existing one to speed up entry. And I can flick through this as well. And I can select what the outcome is in terms of the actual call that I was on and log it from there. Meaning I don't need to actually go in and log the actual call, but I can actually just have all the call information pre-laid out, which saves the amount of time on admin and communicating with that prospect as well. And what's great about the Playbooks tool is the ability to actually insert videos. You can insert training videos, images, reference points that your sales team have access to, and standardizing the way they enter information. And for every question, you can either select custom answer responses, or you can actually use a set of answers that saves to a property. Meaning that if you know you need to get their budget, rather than just setting a custom answer, you can actually select where that saves in terms of what object it's into. And you can save that as a new question, save and replace. And you can quickly see that when someone fills out, it will actually save it into a field that actually filters automatically into your reporting as well. You can then preview a playbook at any point, which looks something like this. And then on the deal, it will lay it out in terms of your information, such as that, which again gives much more context around the actual activities you're logging, but actually speeds it up as well. Meaning that you can actually quickly touch base with your contacts using playbooks, using attachments, using quotes, using line items, and everything's getting stored to this centralized deal record as we continue to build. Now, how do we stay on top of the business? And that's through tasks. And what the ability with this is it's a centralized place where all your tasks fall into, meaning that you can see at any point in time all your tasks and what contact and what company assigned to yourself, when you last had an engagement, when you last contacted, and you can centrally just control your tasks in terms of when you completed them, like so. You can also categorize your tasks into different types, meaning that rather than coming to an overwhelming screen, you can actually look at all the tasks that correspond just to pricing guides. You can categorize it based on your most engaged. You can categorize tasks based on your overdues, and you can add numerous people to these tabs as well in terms of creating these task queues. And what's great is if you have a whole list of tasks that are tied together in terms of like outputs, so you're in that focus time, you can actually store all 25 tasks. It will take you around HubSpot with the ability to say, okay, I have to make a phone call, log an activity. I can then say that's complete, press next, and it will then take me on to the next contact, meaning I don't have to jump between tasks. And if I set it as an email task, it will also already prefix the actual email activity for me. So again, remind me that, okay, here's all the information. This is what I needed to do today. I can send it, and it may be that you misjudged it and you want to reschedule. So you can actually reschedule it to maybe in a month's time, press save and press next, and it will take you on to the next. And by using task queues, it allows you to stay in a focused and efficient way of navigating around HubSpot. And at any point, you can actually cancel the queue and go back to actually handling your tasks manually, whether it's going back to the screen. And with anything in HubSpot, it will give you regular insights in terms of how many calls you've connected with, how many meetings, how many calls you've done, and what activity dates they necessarily had on. In terms of what that looks like, all this data comes together to formulate really powerful reports. And how this all comes together is by going to analytics tools and then sales analytics. What this quickly allows you to do is filter by information, and you can see preset reports based on proven sales reports that are commonly asked for in terms of what activities are my SDRs doing. So are they doing tasks? Are they doing calls? Are they doing notes? Over what duration? Over time? Are we doing more actual activities last year than we are this year? We can change the frequency to monthly, and you can see when we're actually more active as a sales team. So we can start seeing peaks and troughs in our overall sales performance. We can see when deals are being created by either rep or over time, which again, we can filter down by actually monthly. We can actually look at decaying reports as well, how long deals spend in certain deal stages before they're then moved. And you can start seeing that the average time based on different stages, as well as the actual pipeline. So we can actually look and filter this down by the actual main pipeline. And we can see that if we look at the different reps, we can start seeing that for Samuel Banks, most of his deals stay in inquiry, and the average time a deal stays in its inquiry stage is 110 days. The average time it stays in 113 days, and you can have this as a table matrix as well. You can also tie this into your forecasting, so you can actually look at just on your productivity reports, which comes under coach reps and teams, in terms of decaying deals, tasks completed, call outcomes, in terms of if they were connected or busy, what the actual completed activities were. But what you can also do is look at deal changes. So when reps are actually moving deals, so how many deals were created that are new? How many deals had their amount increased? How many deals moved forward? How many forecasts were moved forward? As well as how many deals had their amounts decreased? And the best part about HubSpot is you can actually click into any of these boards and see what's corresponding in terms of where the movements necessarily are. So you can see we had a new deal, which is up 105% to £20.55 because it was a positive deal change. We can then click into it and we can see what the reduction was on certain deals. So the one I was showing on this demo has gone down 100% to 0, and it's in our commit stage. And you can export all this data as well, meaning that if you need to put this into spreadsheets, you can export that at a click of a button. You can see what your pipeline waterfall is. So you can see how many were created, how many were increased in more of a visual manner, what your deal push rate is. So in terms of when your deals are expected to close, and building out reports based on that. So how often are deals being pushed? And if so, when are they pushing it? So how many times have reps pushed them out, as well as what the owner is, as well as looking at the deals that we have based on what was in our forecast. Did we actually close them versus what the submission account is? And the quotas that we sent, we can see what the total revenue goal is for that month versus what the actual breakdown was by different forecast categories. We can see by rep what their quota attainment is. So you can see actually the deal owner versus the closed amount versus where we put their revenue goals earlier in this demo, and what the attainment necessarily is, as well as what the pipeline forecast necessarily is as well, in terms of what that looks like. Lastly, if you want to look at basically how your sales team is structured and what it's looking like, what you can actually do is look at items such as the average deal size that's being created, such as for this entire month, what the average deal size is. We can also look at over time. We can look at all data. So we can look at in 2021, the average deal size for this one team is at £20, whereas in 2022, it may go up because we may have better sales processes or better products. We can also bring in deal loss reasons, as well as deal revenue in terms of where they're coming from, as well as deal velocity, such as basically how quickly it took someone to get something into close one. So it's typically taking 223 days to get to close one. You can see by close one and loss. So basically, how many deals went into won versus lost, and you can break this down. And what I'm trying to say here is you've got full reports either based on outreach versus your forecast versus your actual and your outcomes, meaning you can quickly structure and have all these dashboards set out from an offset. And you may find that you only look at certain ones. And what you can actually do is save these to a dashboard and actually customize it from there, meaning you've got a hyper relevant experience in terms of what that actually looks like. Meaning that when you go to your actual dashboard, you can add a mixture of reports. It may not all be sales reports. You may want a mixture of marketing. So, okay, if our quota attainment is down, what are our session acquisition rates? And you can quickly build this out, as well as partition who can see your dashboard by just selecting who's assigned to it. And you can assign that either by a team or everyone, or just private to yourself. And lastly, what you can actually do is by going into actions, you can actually email this dashboard out over a recurring amount of time. So if you wanted a sales performance dashboard, you could correlate some of them velocity, some of them outcome reports into a weekly recurring email on a scheduled time. And if you want it with a filter, i.e. just last week's performance of the overall report, as well as what kind of format that comes in. So you can attach a copy of the PDF as well as a link to the dashboard. Lastly, if you do have other kind of products and tools enabled, you can add external content such as Google Sheets, Data Studio, Databox, YouTube. So if you do any other sales kind of reporting that you want to include in a centralized place, you have the ability to do that. And last but not least, you do have the ability to further enrich your data as well. HubSpot allows you and understands that its place within your tech stack isn't to replace, it's to enrich your data. And what that necessarily means is that HubSpot comes out of the box with an app marketplace, which allows you to take your sales ops and build this out with actually more information that you may commonly. And you can actually look at both freemium and premium apps to basically integrate with your CRM, meaning that if you use a VoIP system that may not be HubSpot calling, you could integrate Aircall, meaning that if you wanted to do a migration from Salesforce with your data, you could use Salesforce. If you wanted to use PandaDoc for your CPQ process, you could integrate PandaDoc as well. But more specifically, where we see the most help with clients is by looking at the Gmail and Outlook integrations. And what that necessarily looks like is by integrating something like Gmail, allows you to actually work your actual HubSpot leads from within Gmail itself. So as you can see, I've got Gmail open on my screen. I can send an email, but what I can also do is pop out the menu to quickly see my database and all my tasks from within my inbox. And what this allows me to do is search for someone, and it will, in tune with that, look at who the recipient is and search if they exist in the database, meaning that even when you're outside of HubSpot, you benefit from the insights and analytics that HubSpot can offer, such as the core information we collect on them, as well as their activity in terms of emails. We can see what company they're assigned to and the company information, as well as if we've got any active deals, tasks, and tickets as well. We can then use productivity tools in terms of the templates, the meetings, the tasks, everything that we went through in terms of productivity tools to speed that up. We can then log a copy to our CRM, as well as track it so we know when they're opening and clicking our emails. And we can roll out a whole host of different features in terms of what that looks like, meaning that we can roll out email templates, such as for events, which will roll out an entirety of a email for you. You could choose to roll out a snippet, which is just a snippet in terms of like a partial part of that template. So it may be just a bunch of questions you want to send over via email. You could insert your meeting link like so that we set up, which takes them to your overall calendar where they can book in time. What you can also do is insert proposed times as well. And where that gets powerful is it will look at your diary where I can say, okay, here, I'd like to insert that proposed time, and it will include a link for them to access it as well. What you can also do is look at tasks. So you can say that when we send this email, send me a task to follow up, as well as if we wanted to roll out a document, which we showed you earlier in terms of what that may look like. And last but not least, we can roll them into sequences as well, which is a one-to-one based automation until they respond and you can pick up the conversation from there. Meaning that HubSpot is here to enrich your technology, enrich your documents, enrich all these different insights and data you're collecting, not just within the new tool, but also outside of the tool as well. And whether that comes from accelerating the velocity of your pipeline, to creating volume into your pipeline, to just bringing efficiency in terms of how you manage your pipeline. The HubSpot Sales Hub is a great product for any scaling enterprises when it comes to a sales output, whether it's from reporting, whether it's from efficiencies, whether it's from SLAs, and comes with a whole host of products and a very simple to use user experience to match. And that's everything I wanted to cover in today's kind of demonstration of the Sales Hub. And that's everything I wanted to cover in today's demo. If you've got any questions, I'm here to help. Take care.